Hi, my name is Daniel Glasgow, and I'd like to take a few moments and share with you about my testimony and what God has done in my life. I first wanted to share with you that I was raised in a very Christian home, so none of my testimony is a reflection on my parents or on the church that I grew up in. It is 100% a testimony of what God has done in my life. Around the age of 12, I was first introduced to pornography with a friend of mine. We were in the woods and he had found some magazines from his father's stash, and we went out into the woods and we decided we would look. And instantly I was hooked. That led then into a life career of pornography addiction that just kept on going. At the age of 15, I had my first same-sex attraction relationship with another man that was 35 years old at the time. From there, I went on into being openly gay in my high school, which then led to one night on my senior year, I was raped outside our local bar, and I was brutally raped. I was bleeding. Why didn't I go to the police? Why didn't I have the people arrested? It was 1983. If you had gone to the cops, you were probably going to get more harassment than what you would have if you had just left it alone. Then again, right before I moved to Florida, I was raped again. Again, why go to the cops? They weren't going to do anything about it. I was addicted to drugs and alcohol at the age of 18. Cocaine was what became my best friend. So I lived a life of same-sex attraction from the age of 15 all the way up until I was about 30. But in between there, I moved to Orlando, Florida to go to school, where I worked as a male prostitute for 2 years. And then after I got out of school in Orlando, I moved back to Nashville, Tennessee, where I continued to work as a male prostitute. At the age of 20, something very drastic happened in my life. My grandmother, who was my best friend, she was the one that knew me. She's the one that I loved. She was the one that accepted me regardless of anything that happened. Regardless of anything that I did, she showed the true love of God to me. She loved me. She loved me unconditionally. Well, at the age of 20, Grandma had a heart attack. I was at home in Nashville whenever that happened. After I found out, it was about a 5-hour drive to Springfield, Illinois, where she was having surgery. When I got there, she was already in surgery. I waited. Whenever she came out, I went and I sat on her bed. We talked for about a day. And she told me, she said, "Son, go ahead and go home. I'm going to be okay." So with that reassurance from Grandma, I went ahead and went back home to Nashville, Tennessee, where the next morning I went to work. And whenever I was in the middle of work, I got a notice from my boss that I needed to take a phone call. And whenever I did, I heard my mother say, "Dan, Grandma died." My heart broke. My best friend had just died. The person that loved me the most had just died. God knew I was going to be alone at that moment, and He sent a family that I had grown up with to be there where I was actually working that day. And they found out, and they loved me and cared for me and helped me get my things together and helped me get out on the road. Well, while I was on the way home to Illinois that night, my car broke down and it left me on the side of the road, stranded on the side of a hill in Tennessee. And I called my father. My father sent my brother with a trailer to be able to bring me back home. But what happened to me was I was alone now for 5 hours in the middle of nowhere, stranded, sitting on the hood of my car, doing cocaine, drinking. I had time that I stopped. I cried out to God, "How could you do this to me? How could you take my grandma, the one that loved me the most? How could you take her?" Well, He did. But there was a plan. All through Grandma's funeral, I was on cocaine and drinking. still crying out, how could you take the one that I love the most? How could you take her away from me? When I returned back to Nashville, things got worse for me. I kept doing lots of drugs, kept drinking. I got a job offer in Knoxville that I took, thinking that would be a change of pace, it'd be a change of life, only to find out that it got worse. I got hooked up with a crowd there that did different drugs, more drinking, things were worse all the way around. I attempted suicide the second time there. When I failed, I woke up, I called my mother. My mom and dad were there to pick me up in about 6 hours, which is about what time it took to drive. When mom and dad got there, they found their son in a very bad state. They didn't yell at me, they didn't tell me how awful I was. They loved me, which is what I needed. When I got home, my mother helped me to overcome my addiction to cocaine, and I quit drinking. Shortly after, I met a young lady, and we got married. And the Lord had really started doing a change in my life. And we had a beautiful baby girl. Her name is Mallory. And she was the light of my life. I loved her because God had given me back something to love and to cherish and to hold on to. We became very active in church. We became very active in praise team. I played the piano since I was in 4th grade. I was the leader of a praise team, and God was truly using me when one day the pastor's wife sat me down and said, "I understand you were gay." Yeah. Well, don't you know that God doesn't love gay people? Don't you know that God won't use gay people? Don't you know that you're an abomination and that you will never do anything in the church ever again? I broke. It was at that moment that my life shattered. Here, I thought I'd found God. I thought I'd found a new purpose in life, all to be torn away by just a few words. It was at that point that my marriage started falling apart. A year later, we were ending up in a divorce. So from there, I went to a life of pornography addiction, a life of drugs, a life of alcohol. Again, started all over. When I turned 50, I moved to Cape Girardeau, Missouri to live near my daughter and my son-in-law. I became a grandpa, and life started becoming great again. So when I was 55, I went to church with some friends, and I heard God say in my heart, "Raise your hands and surrender to me, and I will change your life forever." I did, and it was at that moment that God instantly took away same-sex attraction, drugs, alcohol, everything, pornography. My life changed 100% in the blink of an eye. I couldn't get out of that church service fast enough. My friends stopped me and said, "What's wrong? Where are you going?" I had to get home because I knew what was at home, and my house had to be cleaned. And I did. And as I packed up everything quickly that needed to leave, because I wanted it changed, I took it back into the church dumpster, and my friends sat there and they watched as I threw it all in there, and they said, literally, you could see things leaving my body every time I threw a box away. And that's the way it felt, was there was freedom. I finally had a freedom in my life. So after God did all this change in my life, things started to change for me on the inside. I started hearing God speak to me even more. And one night, in the middle of the night, I was woken up to a vision where I saw myself sitting behind a computer screen, and I saw men, and they were getting healed. The next vision that I had a couple nights later, I was laying in bed, and I saw the strangest thing. I saw a man with what looked like a pipe coming out of his head. And then God showed me a different view where you were looking down into that pipe. And looking down into that pipe, you could see all kinds of garbage just forced into that pipe. And the garbage that you would see would be like pornography or alcohol or drugs or anything that was against God would be crammed into that pipe. And what God showed me is that is the sins that we have that we've not asked for forgiveness for. And God showed me that once we start purifying our life and getting rid of those addictions, that our pipeline becomes more clear, giving us that connection with God that He originally designed man to have. After that, the next vision that God showed me was that I was standing and I could see a multitude, thousands and thousands of people, and they were all getting set free. I didn't really understand everything about that. Having just recently turned my life back over to God, I didn't understand it. I started sharing with friends what God had shown me, and they started helping me put it all together. One night I was in a church service with some friends where there was a prophet. He came over to me and he said, "Young man, God is going to use you in a ministry that no man, no pastor, no church wants to be part of. It's the hardest ground that a church could want to plow, but yet God is putting you behind the plow, and you're going to plow that land." Wow. That's a hard one. But I accepted the challenge. Later that week, a friend of mine brought me a video program that was set to help men get free of their pornography addiction. Instantly, God showed me that this was the call on Restored Warriors. So that was the birth of Restored Warriors. In September of 2020, in the middle of a global pandemic, God said go. September, we started our first online group with 6 people. We also started a second group with 4 people. From those 10 people, the ministry started growing. We went from 2 groups to 4 groups to 6 groups. So I was leading 12 groups at a time by myself. The ministry grew and grew and grew. Well, I like to get people together. I like to have a good time. So we set up what was going to be called Reunion. And Reunion is where brothers were going to be coming from everywhere to meet. Because of how Restored Warriors is set up, we only do online meetings. We do not meet face-to-face. So with Reunion, we were going to get the opportunity to meet face-to-face. Originally, I thought, wow, this is going to be great. There's going to be hundreds of guys come together. And that was what we set out for. 2 weeks beforehand, God changed His plan. No, my plan changed back to what God wanted. We had 11 guys get together at a friend's house for one weekend. And in that one weekend's time, lives were changed. Men's hearts were set free. People's lives changed forever. We had men that were crying, pastors, worship leaders that were crying out to God, and they were getting set free. Men were calling their wives and going, "Honey, my life is changing." And they were. That was the first year of Restored Warriors. Now, going forward, we have several hundred men on a weekly basis that are going through our program, that are finding themselves getting set free from their pornography addiction. Families are being reunited. Marriages are being restored. Men are finally getting freedom that they want, that they seek, that they desire. I want to share with you a little story. I heard this recently, but it's so true about how things go. When Lazarus died, Christ wasn't there. If he was, he wouldn't have died. But when he finally got there, he went to the tomb and he said, "Roll the stone away." And the sister goes, "But Jesus, he stinks. He's been dead for 3 days. He stinks. We don't want to smell it. We don't want to smell that." And Jesus says, "Roll the stone away." When they rolled the stone away, I can only imagine that there wasn't a stench. It was probably a very sweet aroma that came out. And Jesus walked up to the door of the tomb and he said, "Lazarus, come forth." Well, I can only imagine Lazarus laying back there on a stone and going, "What? I'm not coming out there. Jesus, I see you. I trust you. But I see everybody else out there and I don't trust them because I know what they're going to say about me. But I trust you. So if I can trust you, I'll come out." When Lazarus came out of the tomb, he had his eyes fixed on Jesus, but yet he had everybody else looking around at him. Jesus instructed the people that were around him, "Loose him and let him go." Well, I want to tell you the same thing. If you have a pornography addiction, you are just like Lazarus. But yet Jesus is calling to you saying, "Come out. Lazarus, come out of where you are." Don't worry about who else is around. Keep your eyes focused on me and come out. And that's what men are finding, is when they focus their attention on Christ, when they focus their attention on Him, His love, His forgiveness, His passion, they find freedom. It doesn't matter what all else is going on around them because Christ said to set him free. When we go and we do our programs, we're doing it all online. We do them via an online format. You can be in the privacy of your home. Nobody has to know. If you're in a church service or if you're in a church and you go to a group, you're walking down a hallway, somebody can go, "Oh, did you see?" Well, you're forever labeled in their mind. Even though you can get freedom, you will always have that label with them. Restored Warriors does not operate that way. We operate where it's confidential and there is a bond that is built between brothers to where that you've got each other's back. You don't talk about what happens in group outside of group. Men find freedom in that way, to where then when they have their freedom, when God has fully restored their lives, they're able to walk out into their community, hold their head up high, and be proud of who God has made them. And nobody else has to know their story except for who they choose to tell. That's the way we do our programs with Restored Warriors. I hope and I pray that somehow my testimony has helped you today. Somehow the story has given you some kind of light. And I pray that what you have heard will truly help you focus on Jesus, on His love, on His passion, on the way that He cares for you, because He loves you. Thank you.
My name's Matt. This is my wife, Rachel. And we've been married for 11 years. We have 4 beautiful children. And God's blessed us tremendously. But kind of a little bit about our story. So at age 12, I was introduced to pornography. And that started my porn journey from 12 to age 30. Just a binge purge cycle. I got married thinking that would change everything. It didn't change anything. And honestly, it just revealed the problem. And trying to hide that from my wife for the first several years of our marriage, thinking that I would be okay. At that time, I was in ministry. I was serving as a lead pastor of a small church in Southern California. And then we were moved to an assistant youth pastor in Arizona, Tucson area. And it was in those moments where something tragic happened in our life, in our ministry. And it literally rocked our world. It rocked our ministry. It rocked our family and our community. And I was trying to deal with the grief that came with that. We lost some dear friends of ours through a murder. And we didn't know how to handle that. And that drove me back to pornography. And it was at that moment I just began to daily, every other day, weekly, just binge and purge, searching and finding that, trying to find healing in everything else but the grace of God and the Word of God. And I would try to study and read the Bible, and I was thinking, okay, if I just prayed harder, if I read more, if I listen to sermons, if I listen to podcasts, all of that will help me. And for sure it did in some areas, but it wasn't until I was introduced to Restored Warriors. We had taken a break from ministry, and I finally threw my hands up in the air and said, I'm done with this. And I searched for help online, which led me to Restored Warriors. And I remember signing up, putting my name and information in there, trying to just do anything I could to seek help. And the next day I got a phone call from Daniel Glasgow. And Daniel was telling me his story, how he had started this men's ministry, how God had taken him from his addiction and his pain and his lifestyle to a life of healing and recovery. And hearing his story and hearing his heart and his passion for men, and not just men, but women and couples to be healed and renewed in their mind, drew me to joining this ministry. And I can honestly say now, after a year and several months, I have been on a journey of recovery. And my marriage has never been better. It's been the best it's ever been. After 11 years of marriage, 4 beautiful children, God is blessing us beyond measure. And I'm so thankful and grateful for what Restored Warriors is doing for me and for my family.
If we came from great homes, great backgrounds, we were in full-time ministry, and Satan can attack us, then he can attack anyone. But God can bring us through that because he is greater.
Yeah.
And I think of the word greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. Right. And that rings true in our life.
Yeah.
And so our hope is that, and our prayer is that other couples will be able to spare their marriages because of Restored Warriors. We're hopeful and prayerful that men that are not married yet, that can get this under control before they enter into a marriage relationship. And I pray that whatever God has for us in our future, that we'll be able to help others because of this.
Correct.
And because of what Matt found in Restored Warriors.
Yeah. And now we're experiencing real freedom and healing. And we're still in that journey of healing though too. But it's a whole different level of healing now. And I feel like our marriage is stronger, our family's stronger. We just have that joy of the Lord again in our home. I feel like our kids are getting their dad back, and my wife is getting her husband back. And we're thankful for that.
Because of all that Matt and I have been through Restored Warriors, I will be leading a group of Betrayal and Beyond, and helping other women that might have the same story as me, that might not know where to go, or might be ready to throw in the towel. And my desire as a leader is to share my story. And I didn't start off with grace and forgiveness in my eyes when I looked at my husband. It was anger and bitterness and resentment and insecurity. And my desire is to see those same women, you, who feels betrayed and doesn't know where to go and wants to give up. My desire is to help you to see that there is hope, there is healing, there is restoration, and your marriage can be saved. And your husband or you can find healing through the grace of God.
If I could tell couples one thing, I would say fight. Fight for your marriage, fight for your wife or your spouse, fight for your children if you have them, and even for your future children. I think it's worth every bit to not be fearful of the judgment, fearful of the pain. It's going to be there, no doubt, but the end result is the healing. The end result is the freedom that Christ has already given to us on the cross, but then we get to walk in it. And I am so thankful for that healing. So I would say fight for your marriage, fight for that loved one. And if you know a couple that's struggling with this, let them know our story or other stories out there, because it is worth the fight. So now, after taking about a 2-year sabbatical, God has opened up other opportunities for us back in the ministry. And so it looks like here in the near future, the early parts of the summer, we're going to be moving down to the Chattanooga, Tennessee area, and working with a church down there as an assistant youth pastor, and very grateful for God's goodness in that.
Hey guys, this is Jason Dow in Tennessee. I just wanted to jump on and just share with you all what God is doing in me and through me through the ministry of Restored Warriors. I'm so thankful for Daniel and his team at Restored Warriors and all that God is doing through that ministry. God has brought such healing. He's brought such restoration. He's equipping me more into a follower of Jesus and a disciple of him, and then also just to be able to reach other people. I'm just so thankful for what I found in Restored Warriors. You know, I've been addicted to pornography and lust since I was 11 years old. I'm 37, almost 38 years old, and through the pain that I've experienced in my past and the abuses of my past has led me into those things. But God, through His mercy, has reached out and has pulled me out and showed me how to renew my mind, to walk in freedom. I was addicted to those things, and I've heard a great phrase, which is perfect for Restored Warriors, that the opposite of addiction is community. And that's what I found there. I found a band of brothers that I can share my heart with, a place of grace that I can open up and show my scars and tell my full story, and to be accepted and to be and to be just to be shown such support. It's just been life-changing. The truths that I'm learning or relearning, and the things that God is illuminating in me is just so powerful. I'm actually able to even lead a group of men. I'm in a group and I get to lead a group, and God is doing such amazing things through that. I get to be on the battlefield with other guys and pulling up and showing one thirsty man to another thirsty man where he found water. And I am so thankful for everything that God is doing through this ministry, reaching men around the world and in my sphere of influence. This morning I was in a men's group that I host in my garage, and the guys there, I was sharing with them all what God is doing in me and through this ministry, and they were very intrigued and very excited to learn more about it. So God is reaching, God is doing, God is moving. He's not done, and He is using ministries like Restored Warriors to restore hope, to restore manhood, to restore men to their rightful place, to be the men of God that we're supposed to be. And I'm so grateful to God and all that He's doing through Restored Warriors and in my life.
My name's Mark. I'm in Restored Warrior for about a year now. Been up here in Alaska where there's not a lot of opportunities to have groups and meeting. Being online has been a godsend. I've been able to meet and connect with people around the world who share the same struggles that I do, and it's a joy and it's a privilege to have brothers who not only are willing to reach out anytime, but also who understand what you're going through. I've been to men's groups or churches and accountability groups with them, thousands of dollars of counseling. I've tried more Jesus. This is the first time these teachings have taught me about what's going on in my mind and how to correct it. And it has helped my family and my marriage, and it's helped me to know that I am a child of God. I'm not just a number to Him. I'm not just a statistic, but I am a restored warrior.
Hi, my name's Chris. I've been with Restored Warriors since October of 2020. I struggled with pornography since I was about 14 years old. I went through that whole binge purge cycle. I would look at it and then I would get upset at myself and I would just say, I'm not going to do this ever again. And I would go for a while, 6 months, sometimes up to a year, and I'd fall right back into the same thing. And I would get accountability, and it would work for a while, and I'd feel like I was doing better, and then I would let the accountability drop off and right back to the same place I was before. I've learned through Restored Warriors that what I've needed is ongoing accountability and brotherhood. Just being able to talk to people and let them know when I'm struggling or doing good. Restored Warriors has really helped me through that. There's an idea that I've heard about the lone wolf, and that was me. I tried to be the lone wolf, tried to pull myself up by the bootstraps. I was going to overcome this. And I've learned that the lone wolf in nature actually doesn't survive. It can't survive on its own. It needs the pack, and that's what we need. We need accountability and brotherhood and fellowship, and God created us that way. Restored Warriors has helped me with that and to realize that, and it's an ongoing journey. I'm just thankful for Restored Warriors and the blessing it is to me. And I see great things for Restored Warriors, and that it's going to bless many, many more men. Thanks.